Hey everybody, what is going on? This is episode 81 of VR Roundtable. How's it going? My name is Anthony, and we got a full crew this week, which is nice. Of course, Chris is joining us. He appears to be wide awake over there. We've got Steve in a very white room, and we've got Gary blinded by the sun behind him, but it looks pretty good. So why don't I send it over to Chris real quick? Chris, what is the latest?
Not much. Yesterday I saw my girlfriend go to a dance performance, which was cool. Or she's the one who was dancing. Other than that, I've just been, doing a lot of production stuff, trying to get my game Rubber Rapids finished before finals, which is next week, which is crazy. So it's really been stressful over here, but we're almost done, almost into summer.
Awesome. Steve, what about you? What's going on over in Kentucky?
The Derby is next week. No, 2 weeks from now. But my son has expressed interest in wanting this room to be his bedroom, and his much larger room over the garage is now up for grabs. So we've started the tear out, and now I'm going to have a 5 meter by 4 meter VR play space, and I'm putting in built-in work surface for the desk. So yeah, I'm gonna have a whole new studio / play space / office here. We've already
How many months have you been working on him to get him to say that, Steve? Come on, you've been working on that behind the scenes.
His birthday's next week, and he suggested it. He likes the windows here, and he's turning 8, and he doesn't like being over the garage door when we open and close it, and because it makes a lot of noise in the room, and yeah, he's kind of been saying it for a while, and I put it off because moving rooms is a big hassle, especially all the work that I have to do to prepare the other room. So the good story is we've already made our trip to IKEA and bought a bunch of the furniture, both for that room and what will be this room. So I get a much bigger, nicer, more perfect VR space. So lots of work, but it'll be worth it.
Awesome, man. I'm gonna have to move my complete everything in like a few weeks back to Maine. So I feel the moving pain. Yeah.
Steve, you know what you should do is green screen everywhere, baby. Do some mixed reality.
Yeah. Probably not going to do that. I need the I want the room to look like an office and all that. So I thought about it briefly, but I'll be able to pop up a green screen if I ever want to get back into those types of things. I haven't done anything with the green screen. I still have the one up here in the room that I'm in off camera where you can't see it, and it's been sitting there unused for 4 or 5 months since the last time I used it, I think. So
have you guys ever watched I think is it Tribal Instincts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched him when he first got his Vive because he won a competition. So he had his Vive before it was even released. Yeah.
Oh man. And he I know he had he moved to a new house and did this room 100% VR, and he was calling it Project Immersion. And I always thought it was kind of funny and it was cool, but he made green screen. That dude freaking went crazy with it. Much love, but yeah, you could try that, Steve. But anyway, Gary, what about you in the UK? What is the latest over there?
It's nice and warm over here at the minute. We've got plenty of sun, so I think the weather's going downhill next week. But we're just enjoying it this weekend. So yeah, it's been good. It's been the warmest London marathon on record today. So there's a lot of sweaty people running around London this morning. But yeah, it's been good.
Running it?
Oh. Yeah, don't get me started on that. I was talking about this to my brother earlier on today because it's actually really difficult to get into the London Marathon. Obviously, you have to have some kind of charity sponsorship and that kind of stuff. And even if you have, there's no guarantee you get to run it. It's there's just so much demand to try and run that thing. So yeah, I'd like to, maybe I'll do it one day. Who knows?
You know what? Speaking of the heat, I can tell you guys here in Sacramento, yesterday it was 86 degrees or something like that. And it's supposed to be similar today. And I was out there. I mean, it's still early right now in Sacramento, and it is very warm. And the downside is from a VR standpoint, it's been a long time since we've had the heat of summer and fans everywhere and, you know, playing VR naked and all the stuff that we do. But I mean, VR gets hot. Let's be real about it. I don't know what are VR arcades going to do? They must really have to amp up their air conditioning if they're in a warm area like where I'm at.
Yeah, you go in these phases. I mean, over the winter, it almost gets, because my office is actually in my garage at the bottom of my garden, so it gets really cold in here. So I have to warm it up a little bit, and you have to sort of turn on your PC and warm your Rift up before you can play it, so it doesn't fog up and that kind of stuff. But then in the summer, you've got a problem where, yeah, it's just too hot. It gets too hot to play, even over here in the UK, and this is not a warm country. But I mean, I dread to think what it's like over there, although you've got air conditioning over there, haven't you? So it's a different thing.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people like, you know, the Vive and Chill. Do you guys remember the Vive and Chill, those little fans? Like, a lot of people recommend that stuff. That's pretty good. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and get into the actual news? Not an incredibly impressive week as far as news goes, but we do have some stories to get into. And we're going to go ahead and start it off with AntVR. And so AntVR basically is launching a Kickstarter for a new AR headset called Mix, I guess is what it's called. And one of the interesting side features of this is that it's going to be compatible with Steam VR titles, even though it happens to be an AR headset. The price tag is rumored to be in the $500 range. 96-degree field of view, which is very impressive from an AR standpoint. We're talking about two 1200 by 1200 screens, basically. I don't know if they're like reflecting on some type of visor. I'm not sure exactly how that works. 90 hertz refresh rate, and units are expected to ship by the end of 2018. Obviously, this is a Kickstarter, of course, so we know how those things go, especially Chris. You really know how those things can go sometimes with Kickstarter. Why don't I kick it over to Gary? Gary, I think you might have known a little bit more about this story. I found out about this today. I checked out the video for it. It is pretty interesting. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it does look, that's the thing, that when I first saw this video, it sort of attracted my attention to it, because it does look pretty good, and they're filming the video through the lenses of this AR headset, just using sort of an iPhone 10, and it really sort of demonstrates both what is cool about AR, but also its limitations, at least on this particular device. So yeah, like you say, it's got like two 1200 by 1200 resolution displays, and they run at 90 hertz, and it is compatible with Steam VR. But I think looking at this video, the thing that stands out to me is the fact that AR still has a way to go, at least with this particular headset, because there seems to be a certain amount of drift in this kind of stuff. And what I was talking to you before the show, actually, how in order for AR to really be valuable and really be compelling, at least from my point of view, I want any AR object that is trying to represent itself as if it's being within the real world. It needs to be solid. It needs to be fixed in place. And that's one of the main challenges of AR, actually. So when you move your head, you don't want it any slight drift or anything like that makes you break immersion, I suppose, in terms of AR. Now, this headset, there is a little bit of that within this video, but also this headset, I assume it's tethered to a PC, because it has to be, because it's running sort of Steam VR and that kind of stuff. And also, you know, it's a $500 price tag. So this is not into the realms of like a Magic Leap, and I doubt it's had anywhere close to the amount of R&D in terms of like the development of this device. And also, we should mention that AntVR are a company that are not new to Kickstarter. So they've had numerous Kickstarters in the past for VR headsets. And the good thing, I guess there's good news and bad news with that. The good thing is that they have ended up shipping products to backers of Kickstarter products. Unfortunately, they've not been particularly well received. Now, they've gone down their own path of sort of doing their own sort of tracking and this kind of stuff, which doesn't seem to have worked too well for them overall, because there's been a little bit of disappointment. It seems to be sort of over-promising on these products that they've kickstarted, and when they've finally got to the people that have backed the Kickstarter, they've sort of said, it doesn't quite fulfill the expectations that they had. So this is a company that I think they've got a lot of ambition about them, and they're going for it. But I don't know how well this will end up being, this particular AR headset anyway. But it looks interesting. The video is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know if you had a chance to check out the video. To me, one of the most interesting features is this Steam VR compatibility, because when you're watching the video, you actually see footage of Space Pirate Trainer, Audio Shield. There's a couple of different regular Steam VR games that we're very familiar with, and seeing that kind of superimposed over whatever your regular reality is. And then there's a certain transparency. I mean, does that seem interesting to you? Do you think that could be a valuable feature?
I don't know. I don't really think it's that cool because they can only show these certain games, like the games that have basically pitch black backgrounds. Like if you're playing any game that you would actually want to play that's not one of these mini games where it's black everywhere, then it'll just look weird to have like a virtual world like half transparent over all your real stuff. Like I could see how it works with Audio Shield or something like that. That makes perfect sense. Like I think that would be really cool. But other VR games that are just Steam VR games that aren't pitch black, that it'll just be really weird. I don't think it'll be fun at all. I really wish they incorporated lighthouses or something. That might make it more interesting because, like you said, Gary, the tracking system seems to be one of the biggest problems. Even just looking at the video, they have like controllers that kind of like jitter and don't look too good. So I don't know. I do want someone to come out with one of these just to try it, I guess. I wouldn't actually buy one of these. But if it used like lighthouses and all the objects seemed really fixed, there might be a good use case for it. Maybe there could be like a Steam AR or something, and they could actually start making games that would fit this kind of style. But for now, it seems either too early or just like the wrong platform. Yeah.
Steve, what about you? Does this look like just another AR headset that we hear about initially, and then it seems to disappear into the mist? What is going on? Because there's so many different little AR headsets we hear about, but the only thing that actually has legitimately hit the market is HoloLens.
Well, I'm not sure what to think about this thing. I don't know what its purpose is for me as a consumer, if it has a purpose at all, other than just, hey, it's an AR headset that you can buy. On paper and in the video, there are some things that it's doing better than, say, a HoloLens. I didn't see any information, but I'm assuming it's tethered experience, though, so compared to a HoloLens where you're not tethered. Yeah, it's another product. I don't really have much to say. I'm probably not buying one.
One thing I'll say about it real quick is, like, after watching the video, I was really impressed actually with the Steam VR aspect of this. And me and Gary kind of talked about this briefly before the show, and Gary wasn't that impressed by that factor. But I don't know, I kind of feel like, because one of the problems you always hear in relationship to VR becoming super mainstream is there's a type of person out there that the idea, for example, let's say you're home alone, you're by yourself in your own house. Some people just don't want to put on a VR headset when they're by themselves because, I don't know, maybe they worry that like there could be a burglar or something. I mean, the chances of that happening are incredibly remote, but still you're isolated from the world. You probably have headphones on, and it can be weird. I know myself personally, I can be in this situation quite a bit. And one of the things I do is sometimes I'll call my dog into my room and just have him sit down into my room, because I figure if something crazy happens, my dog will start barking, and that's my warning. That's my warning cue, basically. But one of the cool things with this Steam VR compatibility is for people that have that kind of feeling about it, ideally, I would imagine there would be a slider that you could slide back and forth that would either increase the Steam VR aspect of it or decrease it, where you see more of your background room or less of your background room. And then you know, you could have a little baby crawling on the ground. You could have your dog walking by. You could have somebody in the kitchen cooking some dinner, and you're kind of still there seeing everything, and you're playing Space Pirate Trainer. Now, what Chris talked about is this only really works if the game has a black background. I don't know for sure if that's really the truth. It probably is. What would be interesting, though, is if somehow they could determine whatever is the background, whether it's black or not, and just basically take that background out and then just have the individual things that are moving towards you. Like I could imagine playing Brookhaven Experiment, you know, and just having zombies move towards me, not seeing any background whatsoever, but just the creatures that are coming. That seems like it'd be kind of cool, but I don't know. It's interesting that we have so many weird things going on. You just don't know what is ultimately going to stick.
On the Road to VR article on this headset that they were talking about, you see images where the display panels are reflected onto the optics, so that makes black not a true possibility. And that might be one thing. But then they also mention what looks like servo motors or stepper motors mounted to the sides that might mechanically move something to switch between AR and VR mode. Because, yeah, you would need something physically there to obstruct the optics to get black.
Okay, and the next story we'll go ahead and jump to is the Vive Focus. Apparently, there were some FCC filings this week which could indicate a possible launch in the very near future. Obviously, HTC Vive, you know, we heard not too long ago that the Vive Focus would actually be making an international arrival in all kinds of other markets as well. And so we've kind of been keeping our eye on that. Why don't I kick this over to Gary? Gary, what can you kind of tell us about this Vive Focus situation?
There's not really too much to say on this because I think people are just getting every little snippet of information that they can get out of these little news stories. So we do know that there was a FCC filing last week sometime, which sort of points to the fact that this device is going to be released within the near future in the US. And once it gets the FCC approval over in the US, usually it's a pretty straightforward process to get any sort of any kind of criteria that we need over in Europe in order to get released over here as well. So yeah, there's not a lot to say about it. I did include it as a news story because I think it's interesting for people that do want to pick up one of these standalone HMDs. And this is one of the premier, at the moment, it's one of the premier standalone HMDs in terms of the fact that the headset itself has 6 degrees of freedom, even though it's coupled with, as we all know, a 3 degrees of freedom controller. So you know, I'd still be very interested in this, but unfortunately, the pricing is still sort of. We all going back to the pricing again of HTC, and this one, by all accounts, is going to be quite an expensive device for what it is. Again, I'd love to try one, but not much more to say than that, I'm afraid.
All righty. Other news we can mention is there is a Steam VR Spring Sale. Now, unfortunately, of course, our shows aren't posted until Monday, and this sale is going to end at 10 a.m. Pacific. So by the time our show is posted, there's probably only going to be like 3 or 4 hours left in this sale. So you probably, hopefully, you've already grabbed something. Gary, I believe you picked up something in the sale. What did you grab?
Yeah, I got what is it, Fruit Ninja VR, because it's one that I've had on my list for a while, and my son is a big fan of Fruit Ninja on like the iPad and that kind of stuff, so I thought he'd love it, and he played it today. It's it's a good game, you know, for the price that it's going for at the moment. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what I bought it for. It's around sort of £5, £6, something like that at the moment, but also, actually, I picked up another one, which was Eagle Flight, and I've not tried that one yet, but I know a lot of you guys have played that because that's going for, I think it was around £8, £9, which seems like a really good price for that game. So I want to dive into that at some point. So they're the two that I've picked up. Have you guys picked up anything at all in the sale?
I think I'm going to maybe pick up Box VR just to kind of have another game to get movement in. Going down the list, I have just about every game that they have, which is a good problem to have, I guess, but Box VR is one that I don't have, and I might pick it up. It's on sale, looking at it for $12.99. But yeah, The game, Gary, that you were talking about, sorry, I'm kind of Fruit Ninja here in the US, it's $9.74, and then Eagle Flight, pretty good price at $9.99.
Yeah, Eagle Flight's really good. I love that game. So I think that's definitely a good one to get if you're into kind of gamepad games, it doesn't use motion controls or anything like that. I think for me, like, if I was to get a game, I would probably recommend like all my friends get Star Trek Bridge Crew because it's 60% off, so it's $20 right now. I think that's pretty decent for that game. That's probably the only thing I would consider because, like you said, Steve, I basically have all these games. But that seems like a good price if I could get a bunch of people to buy Star Trek Bridge Crew. But other than that, a lot of good deals.
Other value, if you don't have it and can mind dealing with it, but Fallout is on sale for $42, and then all of the Serious Sam games, the complete bundle together for $47 seems like a pretty good deal on the value proposition scale.
There's I was thinking about Brookhaven as well because this is still a game I've not picked up, and this is going back so long ago. And we had this discussion about wave shooters last week, and if I pick this up now, is it going to be it's not going to get played? I can't see myself even at this price, which is £5.99 over here, 60% discount. It seems like a really good price for that game. One thing I wanted to mention, Steve, I've just noticed Elite Dangerous is on sale, and I think you've just picked that up, didn't you?
Yeah, I picked it up because it was on sale itself. There was an Elite Dangerous sale, so when I picked it up 2-3 weeks ago, I paid. Yeah, it's on sale for $13.49 now. I paid, I think, that like very close to the $13. So I don't feel as compelled to recommend Elite Dangerous. It almost seems like it's at that constant price.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's sorry, Chris. Just before there's, we need to have a discussion about this, Steve. Elite Dangerous 1 week. Anyway, I know you want to spend a bit of time with it before we get into it, but we'll talk about Elite Dangerous.
Sounds good. I was also gonna say, Payday 2 is only $5. So if you have a bunch of VR friends who want to like do a LAN party or a VR party, that's probably a really good deal for that. So.
What's awesome is like if you were a brand new VR buyer, you just came into the VR game right now, there's so many sales, and the sales are always like the major hits. The major hits go on sale, and it's kind of like the usual suspects. They all go on sale over and over again. And if you miss out on one sale, 2 months later, there's another sale. But it's just, I was talking about some of these games. I don't have the list in front of me, but I know Vertigo. It's not the greatest game in the world, Vertigo. It's a decent little adventure game. $3. What's $3? You can barely buy a cup of coffee for $3. And then I think Pavlov is like $6. Vanishing Realms is like $13. Dead Effect VR 2 normally $25. That game is $10. Audio Shield rarely goes on sale. That one is $10. We saw that being played on that AntVR AR headset. And it's kind of for us that have been in this game for a long time, we pretty much own all of this stuff already, mostly. And so we're just seeing games that we already own, and we're seeing the prices, and we're like, wow, that is a great deal for somebody that is brand new. But I could just imagine somebody new coming in, if you had $100, you could walk away with like 15 games or something,
Yeah, there is some incredible deals. I don't want to keep banging on about it, but just one last one. I think Eve Valkyrie as well. Eve Valkyrie at the moment is 50% off, which is a pretty good deal for a very high quality game if you like multiplayer dogfighting kind of games.
Okay, and speaking of deals, the Windows Lenovo headset was recently on sale. I'm not sure if it's still on sale right now, but it was down to $199, which we've seen this before. I don't know if I've mentioned on this show or maybe another show, but I know Costco has had this Windows Lenovo headset for $199 a couple of different times, and it sells out immediately. Like within a couple of hours, it's all gone, and people are like, "Oh man, I missed it." But this was actually on Windows Store, I believe they had this deal. And Gary, you kind of wanted to maybe go into a minor discussion about what is going on with these sales. Like, what does this all mean? Why don't you go ahead and kick that off?
Yeah, well, it's pretty simple, really. I mean, I just wonder because we see all of these sales for Windows mixed reality headsets all the time. Not over here, actually, not over in the UK, but over in the US. Almost always seems to be some kind of sale that you can get one of these headsets for a very cheap price. And I think the Lenovo headset for $199 is an example of this, one of the best examples. So I just wonder, what is going on with this? Is it the fact that they are not selling? Is it Microsoft that are pushing these down, or is it the third-party manufacturers, the Asus, the Lenovos? Why are these headsets constantly getting discounts? And what you just mentioned there, Anthony, actually, the fact that when they do go down to this price, so $199, it sells out straight away. Maybe they don't need to go as low as that. I just wonder why they do sometimes. It seems a little bit odd. So I just wanted to sort of ask each of you, what do you think is going on with these headsets? Is it the fact that they are possibly in some instances, probably the Samsung Odyssey aside, I think a slightly lower experience than we see on the Rift and the Vive, because Steve, I know you've tried one of these, you tried the Dell, and it wasn't quite up to the standard of the Rift and the Vive. So the fact that they're sort of forced into this position where they have to lower the price down to this level, or is it just that Microsoft are almost seeing this as a mistake, going down this VR path, and they just sort of want to get rid of all of this stock? I don't know. Chris, what do you think of this?
I think I tried the Lenovo one. Is that the one I tried? I'm pretty sure it is. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like a good price for it, honestly, because it has all these tiny problems that make it a little bit annoying, and they just gotta stay competitive with the Rift at this point. That's probably the biggest problem, is that the Rift is so cheap. They sell the Rift on the Microsoft website too, so. Like, I guess they make money either way, but they really do want to push their own platform. So I think that's what it is. They're probably really, really cheap to make compared to the Rift or Vive or something like that. So they can probably risk doing that. But yeah, I definitely feel like it's Microsoft's call on that, because they kind of own the platform. So they're probably like, you have to have it be this price, and if it's not, then you're bad or something. So I feel like they're the ones who are doing it. But it makes sense. I think it gets a lot of people to buy it versus a Rift. They're like, 200. I guess I'm not getting a Rift anymore. And then suddenly no one has a Rift. So I don't know. It works all right, but I would never probably buy one just because they're not that good, unless it was the Odyssey. But
Steve, what's your thoughts?
I think it boils down to platform. Like when the mixed reality headsets came out, there was some push with Cliff House, and there was some conversations around the productivity capabilities, and you could dock Windows in the Cliff House and work on Excel or whatever. But you had a few games on the Microsoft Store. The Steam VR support came later, and it feels to me like they missed that ship. They missed that identity. Gamers had no reason to necessarily buy a Windows MR headset, especially at launch, because I don't know anyone that's going to be so vested with Microsoft that's going to be their gaming store. Like, hey, I got a Microsoft account and I'm going to buy all my games on the Microsoft Store. Raise your hand if you know someone like that. So, like I think that's ultimately the problem. When I think of VR, the marketplace, I still think of Vive / Steam VR, Oculus Store, Rift, and PlayStation VR. I don't think of this Microsoft layer. They didn't permeate. They didn't capture the audience, and I think that's ultimately the problem. The technology, the cost, yeah, it's got some technological issues, but so does all the other headsets. And look at the Rift. It didn't have motion controllers at all when it came out, and it caught some heat for that. But they were able to weather that storm. So I don't think it's anything other than it not feeling like a vested platform.
My personal take on it is these sales have been so frequent that I have to imagine, like when they're selling this Lenovo headset, I mean, I would have to imagine they're taking a small little loss on every one of these, but not a very significant loss at all. Like maybe they're losing $15 or something off each one of these sold when it goes down to that $199 price. So I believe that they're not taking a bath on these things when they're selling them at this price. I don't think it's like, Gary, you're probably wondering, did they manufacture a shit ton of these things and they're just sitting in a warehouse somewhere, almost like Indiana Jones style, and they got to clear these things out. And so they're looking at this as a complete and utter disaster, and they have to clear these things out at a low price. I don't know that we're looking at that. I think they're probably taking a small hit, but I don't think it's a significant hit. One of the things I'm curious, though, is I wonder if you can use these in a VR arcade. Like if you could get licensing from Microsoft to be able to use these in a VR arcade, because I've actually thought myself personally about VR arcades and like maybe having my own VR arcade. And I've been going down a strange road as far as that goes. And I've just been thinking of different things. And like these $200 Lenovo headsets, I know they're not ideal. I know they don't work for everything, but like if I was a VR arcade guy and I could buy 10 of these things, because I mean, they're that cheap that, I mean, you still need to have PCs driving these things. But the way I look at it is like you take 100% of Steam VR games. Okay, so maybe there's a 20% of these games that don't work well on these mixed reality headsets, but there's plenty of games that you can play on them where you would notice virtually zero difference whatsoever. And like in a VR arcade scenario, you can set up a very specific station where it's like, this is Space Pirate Trainer Station, and you're using a Lenovo headset and it works great for that. And you got the headset super cheap, so you're able to get a lot of them. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but going back to what Steve was saying, as far as like, it doesn't seem like its own platform. I think that goes back to the thought that Microsoft didn't really try to make this its own platform. Before this ever came out, in my mind, I was thinking Forza 7 VR. I was thinking a legitimate Halo experience in VR. They could have had some very specific things where people would gravitate towards it, because that would be the only way that you could get your hands on that. And in some ways, it's great that they didn't go down that road, because so many people feel like, we don't need that. We don't need to have all these exclusive things going on. And it's great that they didn't do that from that standpoint, but from its own identity, it does kind of hurt it. I oftentimes will talk about the big three platforms, and I'm thinking Vive, Rift, PSVR, and I just forget about Windows Mixed Reality. And it's not that I'm trying to diss it or something. It's just, it's like, oh yeah, and also that as well. And most games will work there.
It feels a little bit like Microsoft have been almost half-hearted in what they've done with this, because they're a company that could really propel this to extreme levels. I think if they sort of, I'm not even just talking about advertising, but placement in industry and this kind of stuff. Not necessarily even talking about gaming, but placing it in various locations, like industry locations, and showing what it can be used for within this context, which I've seen very little of, in all honesty. And I think productivity is the kind of place where they were originally sort of very half-heartedly placing these devices, but there's not been too much in way of communication from Microsoft with all of this stuff. And actually, even the manufacturers themselves, I mean, I've not seen anything from the manufacturers other than them putting these devices on the shelves and seeing what happens with them. There doesn't seem to be like any major push behind them at all.
Yeah, I mean, one of the good pushes is from the standpoint, like if you just open up internet, what is it called now? The Edge browser, right? Yeah, if you just open up the Edge browser, like you just pop it up, it kind of starts off with this like news page where there's all these different news stories and there's ads mixed in. I always see like the Windows, Microsoft, like somewhere on there, and this is going to everybody out there. So there is a little bit of exposure there, but yeah, we'll have to see. Okay, why don't we go ahead and get into the next story? And this one is a Debbie Downer story. This is unfortunate. So, man, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago that we heard about this Intel Vaunt Smartglasses idea. And I think it was The Verge that had like a big breakout story on it. Where they had a video and, they had a guy go down there and he was talking to Intel. And honestly, when I first saw it, I mean, it's not really a VR thing. It's not even really an AR thing, really. It's kind of just kind of notifications that would pop up in your glasses. But the thing about this Intel Vaunt Smartglasses, I felt like they got one thing right, if nothing else, and it was the form factor. They look like regular normal glasses. Somebody could be in a grocery store walking around wearing these things and no one's going to be tripping out about it. You know, they looked very normal. And I thought that getting that technology into the actual frame itself, like that was a major achievement. And now the thing that it was doing is it was only red color, you know, so it's kind of Virtual Boy. But the way it was is if you didn't look down at that little corner of your vision, it would never pop up. And so I thought that was a great idea as well. So if you look down there, then your notification pops up, but otherwise it doesn't. And we found out that basically this Intel Vaunt Smartglasses thing, they basically pulled the plug on it, and it's pretty much a dead duck. And it almost seems like maybe, damn, did they give up on it a little bit too quickly? Because it seems like they just announced this thing. So let me shoot it over to Chris. Chris, are you at all surprised that Intel gave up on this thing so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it had so much promise to it. It was probably one of the most, like, this, I could buy this like next week or something. I'd actually want to have it, you know, unlike other AR headsets where I'm like, it's kind of not ready yet. I feel like this thing was actually somewhat ready to be a product more than other things on the market. So, I mean, I would have been useful to me, you know, I wear a smartwatch and like, you know, it'd be really cool to have glasses as well. It's really sad. I don't get it at all. Like, I feel like maybe they're working on the next generation or something like that. Hopefully, but someone's got to do something like this. Everyone wants it, I think. At least like people like us, I feel like we'd be happy with this.
I didn't see any news article or anything on that. Was there any stated reasons why, or any speculation even?
Apparently, it was mostly because Intel never planned to actually bring this to market themselves. Like, their idea was always they were going to create this like prototype, and then they were looking for a partner like Oakley or somebody that was already in the glasses arena, somebody that's already making frames and they're already making glasses and they can make prescription versions of it and all that. And just kind of like a partnership, basically, that, you know, you weren't going to see these in a store and it wasn't going to have Intel's name on the side. And apparently they couldn't find another partner. And that's why this, but it seems like, I mean, I'm not looking at the dates here of when this Intel Vaunt story came out, but it can't be that long. That it's got to be like less than 60 days or something that we heard about. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm off here, but it doesn't seem like they really gave it enough of a chance, or maybe just every partner they talked to just had zero interest. I'm guessing the real problem here is just price. Like maybe if we heard what the real price of this thing would be, we'd be like, oh shit, no wonder this thing died. Gary, any thoughts?
Not really, no. I mean, it's disappointing, but I think, you know, it's not like it's wasted effort on Intel's part. They've done all this research, and it's not like they're just going to throw all that research away. I'm sure it will get used in some other ways, possibly in like future iterations of this. This is, when I saw the video of this, actually, it looked like what I wanted from Google Glass. It was that kind of the notification-based stuff. It's not, like you say, Anthony, it's not AR, it's notifications, and it's still useful. And the form factor, when in that video originally, when they were talking about it, they said how it was very, very difficult to get even the limited sort of use case that they had in those glasses. It was very difficult to get the amount of processing power that they required in the form factor that they ended up with. And it wasn't like, I think they've been working on this for a long time. And the fact is now, you know, they've got to divert their resources elsewhere. It might be a case that they can't see how they can progress any further with this in that form factor at the moment, simply because of where we are in terms of technology and processing power. That is the product that they can make, and that's sort of the limitations of where we are at the moment. They can't see a path where they can push that anymore to get a more compelling experience out of it. I don't know, and I'm sure, you know, it's not like this has gone away and they're never going to touch smart glasses or AR again. I think we'll see Intel, they've shown an interest in it, and I think we'll see them come back at some point in the future.
Just
Intel,
for information, we last talked about this on episode 71. I'm playing the same video now, so we're doing episode 81, I believe. So it's been 10 weeks since I think they unveiled it. So yeah, it's less than 90 days.
Yeah. Intel as a company, though, man, they seem to be kind of in a weird spot right now. Like, this is some other news came out about Intel where Apple is not going to be using their chips anymore. You know, Apple's going to be making their own chips. Intel just seems to be in a weird pickle here. And I remember at CES, the January CES, you know, they got on stage and they were talking about voxels everywhere, you know, and they were talking about how they made this incredible like movie studio thing for the future of VR and AR, and like everything's going to be voxels and like the NFL, and you're going to be able to watch games and, you know, just incredible stuff. But I don't know, they seem to be kind of slipping and sliding. I don't know what their stock is doing, and I don't know, they seem to be in a bit of a funk right now. But let's go ahead and get into basically the final news story that we got. Again, this is kind of a light news week, but this is one I'm very interested in myself. Okay, so many of us have heard of this game called Compound. And basically, there's been a demo for this game Compound for a very long time. I believe the demo first started out on itch.io. And then finally, there was a Steam page made for Compound, and the demo is on Steam as well now. And we've played, I mean, it's been like a year or more. This demo's been out for a while. It's a great demo. It's really, what it is the easiest way for me to break this down is it's kind of like an old school retro Doom style game, kind of a roguelike, very pixelated type graphics, but purposely pixelated. And when I played it, because I used to be a retro gamer, I was into all this stuff, you know, and when I played the game, I got a really distinct feeling of like Sega 32X and Sega CD and kind of that era, you know, kind of in between 16-bit and 32-bit eras. And just being in there, I mean, one of the great things about being in this demo is like the walls and everything, just it moves so quick and so smooth, and it's so solid, and the frame rate is so great, and that is because it's so simple, you know, so it can maintain an incredibly high frame rate. You don't need to have a super powered PC. And so this game, we've known about it for the longest time, but we had no idea. When is this game coming out? It's basically one guy that's working on it, Bevan McKechnie, I believe, is the developer. And the reason this is in the news is because he kind of came out of hiding and basically said, hey, I'm still alive. The game is still alive. It is coming. And he's basically saying that it is going to be hitting early access in the very near future, and that there's going to be a new demo in the very near future as well. And we kind of found out that there's going to be like a double barrel shotgun. There's going to be this clip loaded railgun that's going to be featured. There's 2 new maps. There's 3 new enemies. And I know from playing this demo, like when I was in this demo, the only thing this game needs is, yeah, I want to see different backgrounds, different backdrops, maybe even like an outdoor area or something would be kind of cool. But I really love the pixelated style of it. It really speaks to me, really like it. Gary, I know you've tried this demo. What's your thoughts that this could finally be ending? We might finally see this game pretty soon.
Yeah, exciting. Yeah, because the demo was one of the better experiences, because it was simple, but there was a lot to it. You know, it just had this atmosphere and this feeling about it. You know, as you say, it's playing on this nostalgia and this retro gaming kind of vibe, and it does it so well. It does it almost perfectly. And I think there's so many games that could benefit. So this is taking like a retro first-person shooter and sort of running with it in VR. And there's so many other types of games that they could adapt to from retro gaming in terms of VR. And I think they could do so much with it. This is sort of one of the better examples that I've seen so far about it. So it's coming out into early access. One thing I'd like to see from the demo into the early access full game is a little bit more variety in gameplay. As you say, maybe some sort of basic outside sections, and they don't need to go overboard with any of that stuff, because I think the base game that they have there is strong enough, and it's sort of procedurally generated levels as well. So I think if they could have just some sort of assets in terms of like small outside sections, and maybe a little bit more variety in the gameplay from what I've seen in the demo, then that would be great. That would take it to the next level for me. I don't want to just keep playing an extended demo. That's my only fear with this, and I suspect it could possibly be that way, where it's very repetitive gameplay over sort of multiple levels, and I'd prefer if they had some kind of a little bit more variety, really. Yeah.
Why don't I go ahead and send it over to Steve? Steve, I want to ask you this because, okay, so the demo, like I'm guessing you've probably tried this demo at some point. And you've never have. Oh man, no. You're crazy. So wait a minute, Steve, are you of the variety where you have zero interest in anything retro? Because I know there's people like that out there. And if you are, that's fine. I'm curious about your thoughts on that. Like, why have you? Because I know you've heard people raving about this on Steam, on Reddit, and all kinds of other places.
I don't know why I never got to it. I'm not anti-retro. I don't love retro for the sake of retro, other than trying to relive some of those experiences that I had. Like, if I want that retro nostalgic feeling, I'll go play A Link to the Past or something that kind of jargons that for me. I don't want to just play something that looks retro. And I think that might be why I never felt compelled to check out Compound. But I remember in Doom VFR, when you complete the game, or maybe even before you complete the game, you can go through and you can play retro Doom levels, and it goes back to those original graphics and everything. And it was kind of fun. It wasn't bad, but it was limited because it was just limited to how the game played back then. So I kind of feel Compound is maybe similar. So it's not that it's bad. It's just that I particularly don't take away a lot of it. So I don't know how much I would like it, but I should give it a go. It's not that I shouldn't. Like, I have no conceived ideas that it's crap, and that's why I haven't played it. It's just I haven't been motivated.
Comparing it to the early Doom levels that were in Doom VFR, I think actually Compound does things a lot better than that, because I wasn't actually a big fan of that. But going through Compound, because it's more built for VR, I had a much better experience in the Compound demo. So okay. Yeah, I recommend it. Yeah.
Chris, what about you? So you're coming from an interesting angle here because you don't have that nostalgia factor. You didn't grow up with the Sega 32X or any of that stuff. And so, when you first saw screenshots for Compound, first of all, we'll question, have you ever played the demo? But after that is, like, when you first saw the screenshots or video, like, what goes on in your mind when you see that? You obviously know it's going for this retro style, but is it like, oh, that's kind of cool, it's an interesting little style? Or I don't know, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't played the demo. I really want to, though.
Oh my God, you guys are crazy.
I know. But looking at the graphics, like, I love it. I love this style so much. And everything, like, all the animations just based on, like, all those, all the stuff I'm looking at just looks so smooth and polished. And, I do like when games focus on, like, functionality first and then, like, they can have an art style. I like games kind of like that. So I'm, like, really looking forward to this. Yeah, I never actually played, like, those super old school games. Like, maybe I've played demos here and there on, like, a web browser or something like that. But I mean, just this could be the next, like, fun thing for VR. That's just like those games were back then. I don't know. Everything just looks so polished that I love it.
You guys got to try this demo because, number one, it's an incredibly tiny download. I mean, you could download this in freaking an instant. And the color, I mean, it is color, bam, and then the sound effects, like the doors going, the doors going up, the machine gun sound effects. There's nothing super magical going on here, but it's easily worth 5 minutes of your time. This is mandatory homework for both you and Steve. You guys have got to get in this and just try this out temporarily. I think you're going to be surprised how enjoyable this could be. One thing I'll say is like being into kind of this retro stuff. Like I've tried the original Doom in VR, and I Quake and stuff. I've tried some of these things in VR where there's kind of a mod to make it to get it running in VR. But the problem I've had with these mods is something is just off about it, you know? And so I'll get into the original Doom and I'm trying to play it, and it's like, oh man, this really does look like Doom. It sounds like Doom, but there's something about it that gives me a headache. You know, if I play it for like 25 minutes, I got a splitting headache. But that's why Compound, I like it so much, is because it has that kind of feel, but it's made with modern day. Like I would think, Chris, this is something you guys could make in your, you know, your school. Like this is such a simple design. Like this is Compound 101, man.
Yeah, it's like simple, but I don't think it's ever been done before in VR. So like that just makes me excited. Like this graphic stuff I've never seen ported to VR other than like people porting older games or something. But like a game designed for VR around this art style, that's super interesting.
That's the point. Exactly. Yeah, you've hit it, because it's the art style, but it's almost like it feels, I mean, it's obviously been built for VR and it just feels so polished. Even the demo feels polished, and it's actually surprising how well it looks when you're in a VR headset, because you look at the screenshots of this and you think, okay, I've got the gist of it. I know how this is going to feel. When you're actually in that world and it looks like that, it's one of the sort of starkest differences in terms of how I imagine a game to feel and how it actually feels when you're in there. So I recommend it just to experience that, to be honest.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a big fan. Like I've always been into color. You know, I love color because so many games we play, you know, it's all these brown tones, these earthly tones, the realism and all of that. And sometimes it's nice to just have bam, you know, just really bright color and everything is crystal clear. It makes your headset seem better than it is, you know, because it really has a good look to it. You know, speaking of color, we can actually go into our game discussion. I believe all four of us have played Paper Valley, which is a new release for Oculus Rift. I believe this is an exclusive for Oculus Rift right now. I think the standard price for this game is going to be $20, but I believe it has a launch window discount for $15.99, so basically $16. This is by Vive Backroom. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Now, we did get a code for this, so full disclosure, we did get a code for this, but I believe all four of us played it. It's a very chill game. Why don't I go ahead and kick it over to Chris? Chris, what were your thoughts about Paper Valley? How did you like it?
I like it a lot. So basically, yeah, like you said, Anthony, it's super chill. It's all based around the mechanic of throwing paper airplanes and having them hit these little bell things, and then once it hits a bell, it expands color outward from the bell, and then like you basically color the land and color the levels, and that's how you kind of complete the levels. But then you get these different types of paper airplanes, so that you have one that goes like really fast and straight, and then some kind of do nose dives, and some are really responsive but kind of too responsive. So there's like all these little tweaks, and the way you control them is after you throw them, you can twist the touch controller to turn them, and then like kind of angle them up and down as well. So I think it's a really intuitive mechanic there. Really good use of the touch controllers, or just motion controls in general. I can see why Oculus wanted this to be an exclusive, just because it feels so right. But honestly, it's like a really basic game, basic premise, and there's just a lot of levels, and it's something you want to go into if you have like an hour or two and just relax in. It's not intense or anything. Sometimes it gets frustrating if you're trying to hit a bell that's super far away and like you just can't hit it. But I mean, overall, it's really, really polished and really, really chill. So that's how I'd describe it. But I liked it a lot. I do want to play more of it. Just whenever finals is stressful, I need something to de-stress. So I think it's good for that.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and kick it over to Steve? Steve, you gave this a shot. What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. It's what, is exactly what you guys said. It's a low-key sort of chill game with a good intuitive mechanic. It's unique in that I can't think of another situation where you're throwing paper airplanes and guiding them. It's unrealistic in the sense that you can somehow telepathically control a paper airplane after you've thrown it, but other than that, it feels pretty natural and realistic. And there's really, unfortunately though, there's not a ton to say, or at least I'm struggling to find a ton to say about it, other than it looks good, it runs well, it's unique, it's fun, but it's also constrained. What you see on face value is exactly what you're getting, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of times we want to be surprised and have our socks blown off, whether it be in a movie or in a game where it takes a different direction that you weren't seeing, and you can walk away from the table feeling like floored or shocked. This game isn't going to do that for you. What you see in the videos and in the trailer and everything is what you're going to get, and it's pretty good. I think the price at $20, I think 15, normal all-time price is probably a little more fair for what I think a lot of people will get out of it. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with it. Also in the trailer, just a little shout out to Jade. She was in the trailer, Jade KVR, and she's also on YouTube and watches our show sometimes. So shout out to her. I can't talk, and cool being in a game trailer.
Gary, I'll send it over to you. And since we've been, I thought maybe we could get a little controversial for a second here. And of course, I'm going to put you on the spot for that. But Paper Valley, is it a game or is it an experience? What would you say?
No, this is a game. I think this is a game, to be honest. But when we were talking about this before the show, you referenced Luna. Okay, now because I think we had sort of different opinions on Luna, but for me, and actually Paper Valley sort of sticks into this point as well. It's sort of fulfilling. Like when we first got VR, I remember thinking, okay, I want a racing game in VR. I want a flight sim in VR. I want a shooting game in VR. I want all these different types. I just want to fill all these little genres, all these little categories and subcategories. And Luna filled one of those categories because, as Steve said about Paper Valley, I think Luna was unique. It fulfilled a certain section, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I can perfectly understand why people wouldn't really be drawn to it or want to pay the amount of money it was, but I think it did what it did very well, and I think Paper Valley does that too. It fulfills a role. There's not really another game like this that I can point to where you're doing this kind of stuff with paper planes and you're throwing them and you're doing very simple things, but it's actually pretty enjoyable in the same way that I almost liken it to like a golf game. I don't play golf in real life, but you could say this is like almost like a golf game. You go in and you just enjoy the satisfaction of getting the shot right and that kind of stuff. And that's really the satisfaction in golf games, and it's the satisfaction in this. To me, Paper Valley is sort of like a cross between Windlands, Luna, and in some ways, in terms of atmosphere, Zing. In all honesty, I got sort of Zing vibes as well out of it. But yeah, I think actually it's a pretty good game. Maybe slightly too expensive at its normal price, as you've mentioned. But overall, I enjoyed it. I've done the first 4 sections, which is about almost just under an hour's worth of gameplay so far. I've heard that the game is around 2.5 hours long, which seems perfect for this kind of game, really. And I guess there's some replayability in trying to do the shots slightly better and that kind of stuff. But I enjoyed it for what it is.
Yeah, you stole my thunder there, Gary, because I was going to say that like the visual aesthetic of it really does remind me of Windlands. Like the game, Windlands in this game, the only thing that you really would compare is like the visual looks to it. There is a very similar visual style going on there. And then the vibe is very Zing. I definitely got that Zing kind of a vibe. And so I think really this game is going to appeal to a very specific type of person, and to a very specific other type of person it is not going to appeal at all. So I think this is going to be one of these games where somebody's going to get into it, 10 minutes later they're going to know if it's for them or not. And I found it very chill, very relaxing. palate cleansing, so I mean we play so many shooters, and we're playing all these like horror games and all this stuff in VR, a lot of high impact, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of crazy things that are going on. Sometimes it's nice to just kind of relax and chill for a minute and just kind of calm down. Nice music, visually very beautiful. Everything is very solid. You're not having like frame rates jumping up and down, and it's simple. One of the things I kind of wondered about it, though, I don't know if I played as long as Gary's played, but pretty much the mechanics of the game, from what I can tell, is like you're in a very specific spot. You're standing on a specific spot. You have your paper airplanes. You'll have like yellow ones and orange ones, and then you have like this kind of bluish purple one. And so the yellow ones and orange ones, these little targets will open up. You have to hit the targets, and then it could open an additional target, or it could open basically like a little teleporting thing. And so then you use the purplish blue one to hit the teleporting one. And so every time you throw the bluish purplish one, it just automatically goes. At first I thought, oh, I'm doing really good, I'm guiding it really good. No, I realized you can throw it over there and it'll hit, right in the right spot. But like Chris was saying, yeah, you'll unlock other styles of paper airplanes, because you'll get into these little areas where you'll see this like circular ball somewhere, and it's kind of like a power-up ball. And so if you take one of your paper airplanes and you hit that ball, you unlock a couple of different airplanes. And the cool thing is when you get these different airplanes, when you grab them, they might have like a little different sound to them, and they do have different characteristics. And some of them are like super jet plane, you throw it, it's like boom. And then other ones, it's like, and so you have to guide it all around. And it does definitely take some time to kind of get that after effect. Yeah. And the thing I was saying about the game thing is like, part of the way that I was playing through it, I'm like, is this really a game? Yeah, I guess it is a game, because technically it requires skill. You can't just have a 3-year-old pick this up and they're going to be able to do it. It does, but it's a very chill game. This is a good thing to put your wife into, or something like that, because it's very chill.
There's a couple of, I just wanted to ask you guys actually, because there's a couple of little mechanics that I'm actually not too sure about in this game. So there's sections where you've got these rings with like this light in the middle, and I assume that if you go through that, you fly the plane through that ring of light, and then you get a bell on the other side. You get some kind of bonus or something like that from that. I've never actually achieved that yet, but I just wondered, is there any reason for these rings of light, or is it simply that? Does anybody know that particular mechanic in this game?
I mean, I actually hit I hit that circle and then hit the color ball or the bell, and it didn't do anything else differently. Okay. But yeah,
I don't know what that's for. I just didn't understand that part. But
I thought what that did was it took you to like the next area. And what I would do is I kind of wanted to stay in the existing area, make sure that I got every little thing that was possible to get in the existing area with that. But I don't know. That's the thing about a lot of these VR games. Like the very first time I went through this, I wasn't paying attention to the fact that after you throw your airplane, then you move the controller. I didn't get, like, I thought I had to move it while I was throwing it. And so when I first started playing this, I was terrible. I could only hit the easy targets, and then you get these long distant targets, and I'm like, how the hell am I going to do this? And then I started it up again, and then it was like, oh, okay, after you have like an aftertouch, after you let it go. It's kind of like, there's been football games before where like you throw a football and then you can kind of guide or a baseball or whatever, it's not realistic, obviously, but I was hitting targets that were hella far away once I figured it out. And you do get a feeling of achievement and accomplishment when you hit like a target that is hella far away and you nail it, and it makes that nice little sound effect. But yeah, I agree with everybody here. I kind of, like, if this game was $9.99, I would be like, buy it. This is a great palate cleanser, buy it. But at 20 and 15 and those kind of prices, I think then it comes down to, well, do you love the vibe of Zing? Do you love the visual aesthetic of Winlands? Then you'll probably like this. you know. But anyways, why don't we go ahead and just do a quick little we'll go to everybody real quick and just find out if there's any other games anybody's been playing, because really the only game that we have up here is Paper Valley. We've all played it. So let's just kind of do a quick little roundtable session on anything else maybe we've been playing. And I'll shoot it over to Chris first. Chris, anything else on your agenda?
No, it's finals week. I can't. But
you've been playing finals. Okay.
I've been playing college. I don't know. Played Rubber Rapids. It's not in VR though.
All right. Yet. Steve.
So last week I talked about building a new PC. So this week I've mostly been doing that and getting everything switched over. I am switched over. I've played some more Skyrim. And yeah, the game is really good and it looks really good. And then also, as I talked about it a little last week, but when I was playing Fallout 4 a lot, I didn't use a mod manager. So as I was importing everything over and I didn't want to lose my saves and everything, so I had to go through all of my files and folders, I decided to use Vortex for getting Fallout 4 VR set up and reinstalled a lot of mods. And I hopped in that game and I don't know if it's a new PC. I have a little more horsepower at my exposure than what I had before, and a lot faster RAM. But I was able to jack the game up a little bit, and to my surprise, it doesn't look as bad as I mentally remembered in terms of its performance. I know underneath the optics and the aliasing or the lack thereof, the anti-aliasing, the assets of the game is a gorgeous game, but it's trying to uncover that. So I think I have some room to play around now, some things that we've learned with Skyrim to make Fallout 4 even better. So been tinkering around with that, and of course I played Paper Valley. The upcoming week, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm probably going to be working on Office transition, so I doubt maybe in the next 2 weeks I'll have a chance to play much of anything. But yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Gary?
Skyrim mainly. Still into Skyrim. I think it's just absolutely fantastic. Whenever I have a little bit of time spare to play VR, that's the one I want to go and play. And actually, you know what? I was looking back at my list from Steam VR, just going all the way back to when I first got into VR. Almost 2 years, well, over 2 years ago at this point. And I was just thinking about all of these games that I've got and I've really not spent enough time in. I was thinking actually about like Fantastic Contraption, these games that were right at the beginning. I just didn't spend anywhere close to the amount of time I wanted to spend in them. So I was thinking about diving back actually and going into some of these older games again and sort of revisiting them. You mentioned Vertigo earlier, Anthony, and that's actually a game that I think I'd like to, give a second chance to actually. So that's something else I want to get to. But yeah, pretty much this week it's been Skyrim and Paper Valley. Yeah, that's pretty much
what
everything.
Level are you in Skyrim?
I'm level 9 at the moment, so I think I've been playing around 8 or 9 hours, I think, at the moment. What about you?
I think I'm somewhere around, I think I'm level 8 and I'm pretty close to that. That's the problem with modding, is you'll get a lot of runtime up without actually advancing and doing anything, because you're hopping in and checking that and turning it off and changing another mod and then going back in the game. So you get a lot of just kind of stagnant running in circles kind of time rather than advancing the story. But yeah, it's a great game.
I've been playing, I've played some In Death and some Primordian recently because they both got updates. This one guy was telling me that In Death has these like new enemies that will scare the living crap out of you. And so I wanted to see that, but I went in and played it. There was like a 3 gig update or whatever. I didn't actually end up seeing those enemies, so maybe I wasn't in the right spot or whatever. I still had a ton of fun with it. Primordian, they have made some legitimate updates to Primordian. There was a legitimate update to it because there's like new enemies now, a couple of new enemies, and there were some changes made to the combat as well. And the developer of the game actually suggested maybe starting it over from scratch because of these new updates. And so I did that. And there's this one new enemy that's in there. It's kind of like this like monkey-like type of enemy. And oh man, they just come out of nowhere and they harass the living crap out of you. And they're easy to take out. Like you swipe them a couple of times, you take them out. But if you don't pay attention to them quickly, they will jack you up. And so did play some Primordial. Didn't notice a ton of difference on the combat, but didn't get super far in there. Other things I can mention real quick. Maxi Pool Masters VR. I played that. That's a very chill game, and it's something I would have recommended prior to this Steam sale because I believe Maxi Pool Masters VR was like $2.59 or something like that, which I thought was a great deal. But you can get Vertigo for $3 as well. So I don't know, So I played a little bit of this game called Super Amaze Balls. I played the PlayStation VR version of that. It's $5 on PlayStation VR, and it's a game where you're using Move controllers, and basically it's kind of like Marble Madness. So you have this little ball that's like on this track, and you're just kind of rolling it around, and you have to guide it to the exit point. And so you're taking your Move controllers and you're like grabbing the tracks, like loop around and go all different ways. You got to be careful though, because the ball will just fall right off. Like there's a lip on the track, but not a ton of a lip. So you start turning the entire thing, then boom, your ball just falls right off. So you got to kind of get this feel for like turning it, rotating it, and so you're standing up, you're kind of moving it around. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was enjoyable, but nothing I would rant and rave about. But, it's only $5 and it uses the Move controllers pretty well. So that was kind of cool. That's pretty much what I've been playing. But I guess that basically pretty much goes ahead and wraps it up. Once again, this was episode 81 of our show. Like we always say, please leave comments, like the video, subscribe to the video. We love iTunes reviews, so if you could pop an iTunes review for us, that would be wonderful as well for the podcast. Anything else anybody wants to mention or talk about?
No, nope. I don't have anything else.
Okay, so that pretty much does it, and we will see everybody next week with another episode of VR Roundtable.
Bye.
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 Later.